Good morning, insiders. Welcome to another Monday download. Well, I got to start today off with several shout outs, actually. They're all kind of the same story and different players in a specific file and how everyone worked together. But I'm starting today off with Debbie Dobbins is the number one shout out today. She is a new agent to the Alliance Insider Network. This is her first short sale file. And she had a seller come to her about 3 weeks ago with a listing that only had about 3 weeks until foreclosure auction. And so she had to work really hard at getting it to her site price system quickly. She had to kind of let some of the conventional wisdom and strategy that we use go out the window because she didn't really have time. And one thing I will say about Debbie, and this is the first part of my shout out to her, is that she really immersed herself in the training and the material that she had invested in and really understood what the steps were going to be. She'd obviously gone through some stuff and processed it before she even took this listing. So she knew what step 1, 2, and 3 was going to be in the situation. Now, one thing I will say, she was, as a new agent, she didn't realize that she needed to get all of the paperwork into us at the very beginning so that we have time to kind of process it and make sure everything's there. But the other part of my shout out to Debbie is that she did an absolutely commendable, bang up, awesome, wonderful job at getting the paperwork to us when the offer came in. So we got the offer in, and literally within it was less than 24 hours. I think it was the same day. We got all of the supporting documentation, title information from the buyer. I mean, she had it all together. She did a great job positioning her seller, having her seller on board with the process and getting paperwork to her quickly. There's obviously urgency involved here. We had a foreclosure auction at that point in about a week coming around the corner, and so everybody was in high level mode getting the paperwork in. But congratulations, Debbie, on following the strategies, on understanding what the next steps were going to be, and on gathering that paperwork so quickly. So way to go. The second shout out and second part of this file had to do with a bit of a hiccup with HFC, who was the bank that we were negotiating with. And HFC said, hey, you know what, we know there's a foreclosure auction like a week away, and we're going to order a BPO, and we're going to order it for a rush, but we want 2 full days to review this before we're going to do any kind of postponement of a foreclosure auction. And so another problem added into that kind of attitude that HFC presented was the fact that we had Memorial Day weekend right there in the middle. So everything got sent into the bank on Friday before Memorial Day weekend. So the BPO order didn't actually come in until Tuesday, and the foreclosure auction was Friday. So we had 4 days from the day that the BPO agent got their order to get the BPO done, get it back to the bank, give them 2 business days to review it, and postpone the foreclosure auction at 10 a.m. on Friday morning. So a lot of things stacked up against us here. And so my second shout out is actually to Dan Hoffbauer. Dan Hoffbauer was the BPO agent on this property. He is an Alliance Insider Network. He has done short sales, so he understands not only the short sale process and the importance of the BPO and how critical it is to the success of a short sale, but he also understood the urgency of the situation. Dan's lost properties to foreclosure too, and he understands that if the bank says, we need this BPO back quickly in order to postpone this foreclosure auction, that they need it back quickly. So Dan got the order on Tuesday morning and had everything done and processed and back to the bank that same day, so that on Wednesday morning we could be calling the bank saying, hey, do you got this? Because it was sent out to you yesterday and you need to find it because you don't have a lot of time for your review. So big shout out to Dan. I'm going to actually give Dan the nickname Dan Superfly Hoffbauer, because he gave us a super fly rush on this BPO. And so way to go, Superfly. Thanks for all your support and doing such a great job with your BPOs. And he's just doing his job, but he understands kind of the context and the repercussions of his job and takes it very seriously. So thanks, Dan, for doing that. Third shout out is going to go to Aaron Tilbury, the Hammer. Haven't had one for the Hammer for a while, not because it's not doing a great job, just because Connie's been dominating. But the Hammer brought it on this one. It was highly urgent. My wife happened to be the buyer's agent on the other side of this transaction, so a little extra leverage there. Everybody was really wanting to get this deal done, And so the Hammer jumped on board, and on Thursday, the day before the foreclosure auction, we still had no postponement. And so Aaron wove his way through the systems, got to the negotiator, actually got the negotiator on the phone, which is a feat in itself. And in that conversation, not only he had to bring the Hammer out to do it, but not only did he get the postponement, but he got a verbal approval of the short sale in that short amount of time. So congratulations, Aaron. Way to go on that. And then kind of just a last little icing on the cake, Friday morning, not only was the foreclosure auction postponed, but before 10 a.m. that morning, we had a black and white short sale approval letter, which puts Debbie Dobbins and this transaction as the fastest short sale transaction we have ever processed at Alliance Short Sales in 5 business days, counting the day of submission to the bank and the day we received the approval. Really, it was more like 4 business days because we had the verbal approval on a Thursday, and early Friday morning we had the letter in our machine. So way to go, Debbie, for a 5 business day short sale transaction. I will remind you, Debbie, this is your one-hit wonder. Don't expect that all your short sales are going to go this smoothly and this quickly, but hey, when they come, we'll take them. So way to go, everybody. All of the players in this transaction added to that fact that Debbie was so prepared with all of the documentation that was needed, that Dan did such a quick BPO and got it back to the bank, and that Aaron was on top of it, pushing on the bank on the backside. So all the players were important, and so congratulations to everybody. All right, let's jump in. We only have a few minutes left here, but I'll be able to get through what I need to. Let's talk about strategic defaults. That may be a new phrase to you, strategic default. It is a phrase that we're hearing more and more from the lenders that we work with, and we're seeing more and more on the files that we're processing. So what is a strategic default? Strategic default means that the borrower or seller is strategically defaulting on their loan because they want to get out of an asset. They have an investment property or they have a home that they live in and it has decreased so much in value. They owe more than what it's worth, and they honestly are like, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to live in a house that I owe $100,000 more than it's worth. Forget it, I'm out of here. I'm going to strategically default on my loan, see if the bank approves a short sale for me, and move on with life. And the reason that they call it a strategic default and why it's different than any other short sale is because the borrower can actually afford to make the mortgage payments. So the hardship is really weak or non-existent, and it really is, hey, I'm going to let this thing go to foreclosure, so if you want to sell it on a short sale, I would be copacetic with that, but I may not have a major hardship, but I'm not going to still live here. So that's kind of the perspective in what a strategic default is. So what do the banks think about it? Well, the banks will do them, but there's a couple caveats, and this is what's important for you to understand. If you see a financial worksheet and tax returns and pay stubs and all those things that end up coming out to a positive at the end of the month, so they're paying their mortgage payment as it sits and still able to cover all their bills, and they have money left over at the end of the month, that's not going to fall into a normal short sale transaction. That's going to fall into strategic default, and expect a couple of things. Number one, expect a promissory note. The bank is going to say, hey, these guys have enough money to pay this. Sure, we'll let them sell the house and get out from under the house part of it, but we're going to collect on the rest of our money. So we're going to want them to sign a promissory note, and it could be for a large portion of the debt, if not the whole amount of the deficiency. So the seller should expect that there's going to be a promissory note. The other thing that you can expect on these transactions is cash at closing, a contribution from your seller at the closing table to increase the net to the bank above what the purchase contract would. So cash at closing is something that you can expect, or a combination of the two. Here's the piece that's important. When you're doing a quick review of your seller's situation and you're looking at their financials, you have to, and you see that they're in this situation, you have to get seller agreement at that time. You really need to get agreement from the seller that they are going to accept a promissory note if it comes through, or they're gonna, within reason, contribute cash at closing. Because if you don't, the likelihood is that those items are gonna happen, and if they're not gonna do that, and they won't agree to it at the beginning, they're not gonna agree to it at the end, and you're gonna waste a ton of your time listing and marketing a property that's never going to close. So the reality is it's better for you to just not take that listing. So I wanted to talk about strategic defaults simply because we're seeing so many of them happen right now, and you're going to run into more of them. In the last week, I've talked to 3 people about a strategic default. I mean, they didn't call it that, but that was the situation when they were asking me questions. You know, they don't really have a hardship. They've got extra money. You know, will they bank even do a short sale? Well, yeah, they will, but they're going to want some money at closing or a promissory note after the end of the deal. So that's all I have for today. I'm out of time. Have a great week. If you have any questions, give me a phone call, send me an email. We'll dialogue and continue to find great success in your short sales. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.